Sean Strickland is absolutely terrified that Khamzat Chimaev will get the next middleweight title fight with a win over Robert Whittaker at UFC 308. And he recently lashed out at Khamzat Chimaev on social media. And we're going to take a look at that in this video. But I believe there is a good chance that Sean Strickland does not get the next title fight against Dricus Du Plessis. And before you jump down in the comments and say, Dana White just confirmed it the other day, you need to stop reading headlines. You need to go to the source material and watch it. And we're going to take a look at what Dana White had to say at the Dana White Contender Series post-fight presser, where he confirmed Sean Strickland is next in line for Du Plessis. And I'm telling you, the answer that Dana White gave was not confidence-inspiring if you're from Sean Strickland's camp or you are Sean Strickland. But that's not all we're going to look at. We're going to look at some other clips from Dana White recently, kind of backtracking on Sean Strickland, but also Eric Nicksick, Strickland's head coach, even admitted in a recent interview, look, we may end up getting skipped over for Khamzat Chimaev or Robert Whittaker, depending on what happens at UFC 308. We're going to take a look at that. And we're also going to take a look at Du Plessis' head coach saying, Strickland's not next. Strickland's not going to be next. So that's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. But as it stands right now, I think there's like a 60% chance, 70% chance, depending on what happens at UFC 308, that Sean Strickland does not get the next middleweight title fight. Let's jump right into it. We have a lot to get to. First thing I want to highlight, Sean Strickland tweeting out on June 3rd, 2024, time to sit out and wait for a title shot. The UFC does not historically like this type of behavior. Dana White does not historically like this type of behavior. Yeah, I don't advise anyone to sit out. I don't advise anyone to wait for a title fight, especially when you're on a one-fight winning streak and you beat Paulo Costa. One-fight winning streak, you beat Paulo Costa in a flourishing middleweight division where there's a bunch of up-and-coming guys on win streaks. Next tweet we're going to look at, I just want to go through this really quickly. I am #1 contender for the title shot. I paid my dues with Costa, which is just hilarious. I paid my dues with Costa. Costa does not have a win over somebody currently on the UFC roster, okay? I don't even remember the last time Costa even got a win. I don't have it off the top of my head right now. It's been years. It's been years since Costa's won a fight, okay? Then to top it off, it was one of the most boring fights of the year. He won via split decision with jabs and teeps. He says, if I have to wait, I'll wait, but you all take 8 months to train for a fight, sack up and get in the cage, bunch of women. Which I find funny, to be honest, because the UFC doesn't like these guys sitting out like that. Oh, I'm going to wait 12 months, I'm going to wait 8 months. Imagine if this was, Magomed Ankalaev. Imagine if he was saying these types of things. Imagine what the fan base would say. But also, this goes to show that he ducked Robert Whittaker. We already know he's come out and said he'll turn down Robert Whittaker. We already know, I think it was Eric Nicksick recently came out and said he was offered Robert Whittaker, or maybe it was Strickland himself, and he turned it down. He's turned down Khamzat Chimaev in the past as well. He's turned down multiple fights, and the UFC doesn't take kindly to that as well. You can say, oh, well, Joey, the circumstances, this and that. But that's not the point I'm getting to. The point I'm getting to is the UFC isn't too happy with this type of behavior, regardless of the rationale. Next tweet. They thought Whittaker gets a title shot before me is fucking wild. Bro, you're 0-3 with a stoppage. I beat both of those cons. Do rankings matter? Do the right, UFC. Now, again, this is a couple months ago. This is on July 9th of 2024. Now, what I find funny about this is Strickland's on a one-fight winning streak against Costa. Whittaker beat Costa more impressively than Strickland, and then went out there and KO'd Ikram Aliskerov on short notice, and then is fighting Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 308. So, if Whittaker wins against Khamzat Chimaev at 308, how can you say Strickland is more deserving? Oh, because he had a close fight with Dricus? That's the rationale. Makes absolutely no sense. Next tweet. And this is where it really starts to get interesting, because we're going to look at some clips of Dana White talking about South Africa here in a minute. You don't want me there. I don't either. Highest unemployment rate in the world, the third worst crime rate in the world. It's been ranked as the most unequal place on earth. It's racist, unequal. You have a small, white, wealthy minority and a poor, black majority, Las Vegas with a winky face. This sounds a lot like demanding a location. I know a lot of fans say, Ankalaev demanded Abu Dhabi. It sounds like Strickland's demanding a location here, okay? That's what it sounds like to me. And the fact that he's saying, I'm not going to fight in South Africa because it's racist. I mean, imagine if Adesanya was saying that. I mean, this is just a delusional excuse. it's no reason for him not to take the fight. And also, who is he to dictate where the champion fights? He said, oh, Dricus doesn't get to fight in South Africa, even though that's been his dream for a long time, because he thinks he won a close decision, which he did not win. The judges did not agree that he won. Next tweet. We will be fighting in the land of the free. You're not ducking me, Dutchman. I know you're going to try to. It's not happening. Dana White, quote, you're next in line. We're bringing it back to America, and the belt is staying back in America. So again, he's insisting that he is fighting in America. He's not fighting anywhere else. You think the UFC likes these types of demands? Now, maybe Strickland will fold on him, and we're going to get to that a little bit later when we look at some of the clips. But again, demanding a location. And then we also have, and I think this is the last tweet, Instagram post I'm going to show you. This was the real recent one, okay? This is from October. This was posted on Instagram. No date yet, but it should be in January in LA. Which is hilarious because they're doing an event in January in LA, in California. If Strickland loses there by decision, what's he going to say? He's going to say, those dirty liberal judges, they got me. They rigged it against me again. It was a headbutt. It was this. They were racist, this and that. Embarrassing, completely humiliating. Again, now demanding a location, essentially. Refusing to go anywhere else. And we're going to get to that in a second because I think a lot of this was a rebuttal to Dricus Du Plessis' coach doing an interview with Submissive Radio, which we're going to get to not next, but the very next thing after that. So, okay. Oh, how did that get there? That's just Strickland crying and sobbing because Du Plessis made him his bitch. Let's get to Eric Nicksick, okay? Eric Nicksick was asked, basically what's going on with Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis. And Nicksick admits, we may get skipped over for Khamzat Chimaev or Robert Whittaker. Listen to this.
Yeah, we heard we're next. So that's from Dana. I know Hunter said that. Sean had met with Hunter, and he said we're next. We're just waiting on a timeline that Dricus is going to be available. So we're waiting on Dricus.
So they're waiting on Dricus. Dana said we're next. This is referencing an interview that Dana White did. At least that's what I think he's referencing. Where Dana said, oh yeah, Sean Strickland's #1 contender, so he'll probably be next. That's what they've been referencing this whole time. Now, again, he's saying Sean spoke with Hunter, so that's a little bit of a different scenario. But let's continue.
The nice thing is that his coach, Dricus, none of these guys get to call that shot. It's the promotion.
Yeah.
So, can Rob...
So there you go. No, none of these guys they don't get to call their shots. The promotion does. The champion has a little bit of say in it, okay? Especially Dricus, who's now defended the belt once against Adesanya, which Sean Strickland never did. And I paused it at a horrible time because this next part is where he says we may get skipped over ultimately. He knows what may go on. So I'll rewind it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, can Rob leapfrog because it's in Sydney? Yeah, absolutely. Rob goes out, has a great performance against Khamzat. Can he leapfrog Sean and take that fight because it is in his home country? Yeah, absolutely he can. But, from what the promotion has said, that Sean is next, and, that's all we can do. We can take them for the word, and have they changed their mind on certain things? Sure have, but we got to make sure we're ready when that opportunity comes.
Yeah.
So he specifies Rob. Khamzat recently came out and said he can fight anywhere but America. Now, I know a lot of people says he can only fight in the Middle East. He said he can basically fight anywhere but America right now. So if Robert Whittaker wins, I don't see how you deny him a title shot, especially if it's happening in Sydney. If Khamzat wins, okay, maybe they still give it to Strickland. I'm going to break that down in a second. But either way, whoever wins at 308, if it's an impressive performance, they are far more deserving than Sean Strickland. I mean, I know a lot of people, it's fun to hate on Chimaev nowadays, but if Chimaev beats Robert Whittaker, he's undefeated. He beat Robert Whittaker. He beat Kamaru Usman. Say what you will about Kamaru Usman, former welterweight champion, and they both took that on short notice. But even if you want to just compare one win to one win, what's better? A win over Robert Whittaker or a win over Paulo Costa, who hasn't won a fight in damn near 8 years? I'm exaggerating, but you get my point. So you tell me. And then you also have Caio Borralho. You also have Nasruddin Imavov, all on big winning streaks, okay? Next clip I want to take a look at. This is DDP's coach. I'm not going to be able to say his name. It's Morne Visser. I don't know. I'm going to butcher it. I didn't even want to say it right there. But this is a recent interview he did with Submissive Radio. I will link this full interview down in the description if you guys want to go check it out. But he outright says, look, Sean Strickland's not going to be the next title contender. Now, I know he's not the guy that makes the decisions here, but he's privy to conversations going on behind the scenes. And again, we're going to look at what Dana White said recently, but also Dana White has, I mean, think about how many times even Eric Nicksick was acknowledging it there. Could they change their mind? Have they changed their minds? How many times have we heard Dana White or the UFC promise somebody a title shot and then change their mind on it? Especially when they're turning down fights, they're sitting out, they're refusing to fight certain locations. Now, again, that can all change, and we're going to go through that. But let's listen to what Dricus' coach has to say.
Is the next in line? Who is the next in line for Dricus? Is it definitely Sean Strickland?
So we obviously speak to our agent, Danny, from Ruby, and he speaks to the UFC, and we've been up and down. And I had a conversation actually yesterday with Dricus in depth, and I said to him, there's only one thing for certain at this stage. Only one thing, and that's that we've got to be ready to fight in Sydney in Feb. My opinion is Sean's overselling it. He's, I mean, he's just had one win after Dricus. That was against Costa.
Facts, one win against Costa. And the reason Sean Strickland, I've been trying to tell you guys this in live streams and other videos where I've talked about the topic, Sean Strickland is getting his name out there so much recently because he kind of wants to try to put pressure on the UFC. And, you know, it's like the opposite of when the UFC announces a matchup and they haven't had bout agreements signed yet. Strickland is like convincing everyone it's happening. So then if it doesn't happen, maybe there'll be some backlash from his cult that follows him. And he's breaking it down right here. Dricus Du Plessis' coach is breaking it down right here. He has one win over Paulo Costa. He doesn't get to make any demands.
Whittaker had 2, and I think he's going to go for number 3 now. So I think my honest opinion is that next for us in line will be Whittaker in Sydney in February. I think he's going to beat Khamzat, and I honestly think that they're going to give him the shot. I mean, why would you fly Strickland? He will never be a better favorite than Sean. Sean against Robert in Australia doesn't even make sense. I think
facts. It doesn't even make sense. Also, if Whittaker beats Khamzat, 3-fight winning streak. He may have lost to Dricus before, but that's irrelevant because he's on a 3-fight winning streak since then. Strickland's on a 1-fight winning streak against far less opposition in Paulo Costa only.
The UFC is waiting for who's going to win between Rob and Khamzat. And that's our next opponent. I don't necessarily.
So this is where it gets interesting. He says he's waiting for the winner of Rob. They're waiting for the winner of Rob versus Khamzat, and that's going to be our next opponent. But then he says maybe if Khamzat wins, it'll be Sean. This is where it kind of gets weird, but I'm going to break down what I think he's saying here, but I'm not 100% sure.
Necessarily say the winner, if Khamzat wins, I think we're going to fight Strickland, and then Khamzat maybe later. But I honestly think. Even if you think about it, that there's even a slight possibility that if Khamzat beats Rob, that Dricus has fought and beaten Sean and Rob. So if Khamzat beats Rob, I think they're going to play their cards a little bit different, and we're going to fight Khamzat later. But so far, the only thing that's confirmed is we will be fighting in February in Sydney.
So there you go. I'm wondering, because it's weird. He's saying if Khamzat wins, maybe we'll fight Sean. But if Khamzat wins, maybe they'll play their cards a little bit differently. Maybe what he's... This is crazy. This might be wrong. This is just an interpretation that I literally just had while listening to this for a second time. But maybe he's thinking if Khamzat wins, maybe they don't put Dricus in Sydney. Maybe they have like a Volkanovski fight or an Adesanya fight in Sydney, and then they move Dricus down the line a little bit, March, April, May. Maybe there's some talk of a Saudi Arabia pay-per-view. There's talk of South Africa. And could you imagine they do Dricus Du Plessis, Khamzat Chimaev in South Africa? That would be massive and insane. And guess who would be willing to go to South Africa? Khamzat Chimaev. Guess who's not willing to go to South Africa? Sean Strickland. 2 more clips we're going to look at from this interview because there's some more discussion of it here between Dricus Du Plessis' coach and Submissive Radio. Sorry, I'm trying to jump to my timestamp right here. But yeah, he's talking more about Robert Whittaker if he wins.
The exact same thing now. And then obviously, like I say, it doesn't make sense to have Sean there when they've got their own Rob. So my opinion is it's going to be us and Rob rematch in Sydney if he wins, and I think he's got a big chance to win.
So there you hear it from Dricus' coach. Next clip we're going to take a look at is a little bit crazy. I think this is going to bend people out of shape a little bit, but he talks about DDP versus Izzy. Listen to this.
We're going to get the rematch against Izzy sometime next year in 2025. And then also, you guys saw the Izzy that came out fighting for Dricus, and you saw the Izzy that went to fight Sean. I mean, the Izzy that faced Dricus, or came out to fight Dricus, Sean's got no chance against that Izzy, man. That guy is he was the best version of Izzy I've ever seen. So if the UFC gives him the rematch, awesome. But I think that Izzy shouldn't waste his time with shit like that. I think we all saw he's a lot superior fighter with this Dricus fight.
So there you go. Dricus' coach saying, yeah, I don't think Adesanya should waste his time with Strickland. We all know Adesanya is better than Strickland. And what he's saying here is he probably knows the rumor about Adesanya drinking nonstop in the lead up to the Strickland fight, not taking Strickland seriously, the fight kind of coming together on short notice, also rumors of injuries, also rumors of rehab. And Adesanya looks substantially better in the Dricus fight than he did in the Sean fight. You can say that's because of matchups, whatnot. But the thing is, and the reason I wanted to show this clip is not because of that. Adesanya needs one win. Maybe the UFC books Adesanya versus Costa. Costa loses via split decision to Adesanya. They could say, oh, Adesanya, I swear on my life, if Adesanya gets booked against Paulo Costa and wins via split decision, I'm going to have to advocate nonstop for Adesanya to get the next title fight, just as a joke. So just remember that, okay? But the point is, whether I like it or not, because some people like to put words in my mouth, if Adesanya gets one win, he's right back in the title picture. And can you imagine Du Plessis, Adesanya in South Africa in 2025 as well? That'd be insane. That's going to be much more profitable to the UFC. Not that I care. I'm all about meritocracy. But in terms of UFC decision-making, that could come into play if Sean does get kind of skipped over, even though he's not really being skipped over, for the winner of Rob Khamzat. Because Rob wins against Khamzat, if they're going to stay in Sydney, then it makes a whole lot of sense to have Robert Whittaker in there in a rematch. And I think a DDP Whittaker rematch is very compelling. Next thing we're going to take a look at. This is when we're going to start to get in Dana White's Contender Series. Actually, before we do that, I can tell that Sean Strickland feels this title shot slipping out of his grasp. I think he's worried about it. I think he's been a pain in the UFC kind of side for a while. You're going to hear Dana White talk about that towards the end of this video. And I think he's worried about it. And that's why he recently lashed out at Khamzat Chimaev. I think he also saw some clips from Dricus' coach. He says, I love how the world just overlooks these guys' past. Awfully funny for a guy who's a former neo-Nazi. Builds a life in Sweden, goes to become best friends with an absolute monster who's pretty much bought him like a W. Then, when the leash got too tight, he fled to the Middle East. You should not be allowed in this country. I think he meant you sold your soul to a terrorist dictator. You are not compatible with America. Thank God we don't do drone strikes in that part of the sandpit. Sick of the UFC forgetting it's an American company. And then said, Lamau, now go buy a crypto scam with my name on it. Which is hilarious because all this is just absolute bullshit. First off, okay, I love how we just overlook this guy's past, okay? Strickland, former neo-Nazi, okay? Former neo-Nazi. And the whole Khamzat Chimaev is friends with a dictator is just a tired old narrative. For those who say that, for those who criticize Chimaev for that, what would you like him to do? I'm open to it in the comments. What is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? Put his family's lives at jeopardy? Put his life at jeopardy? What do you want him to do? Disown this guy when he lives in that part of the world? Okay, his hands are tied. There's nothing he can do. And to sit here and first off cry that South Africa's racist and he doesn't want to go there, and then say stuff like this, I mean, you're not allowed in America. Okay, we get it. We get it. He's in some type of relationship. Well, that sounds weird. He has a connection to somebody who is not on good terms with America, so he's not allowed in America. But UFC's forgetting it's American company. Somebody said, look, we're going to see what happens at 308. And I'll tell you this right now. Dricus Du Plessis is not getting booked by the end of October. So at the end of the day, we're going to see the result at 308 between Khamzat and Whittaker. And I just think Strickland keeps putting this stuff out there, whether it be this or whether it be this, to try to get the fans on his side and acting as if this fight's in the media, acting as if this fight's already a foregone conclusion. That's what he's trying to do here. But just lashing out against Khamzat, like, what is Khamzat supposed to do? I would love to know. Again, I'd be very interested down in the comments. And I made a satirical tweet. There was some report or something about Trump and Putin, and Strickland has been notoriously saying he's donating to Trump. And I said, Strickland should be banned from the United States. He's donating to a guy who's friends with a dictator, a murderous dictator. It's just, this guy is the biggest hypocrite in the world. Embarrassing, humiliating, and constantly making hypocritical statements. Next thing I want to take a look at is Dana White. I believe this is the August 20th Dana White Contender Series post-fight, where he's asked about the middleweight title picture. This is the day after he first kind of said, yeah, Strickland's #1 contender, so he'll be next. He already started backtracking literally 24 hours later. Listen to this.
Kyle Barallo fighting Jared Cannonier, big fight for Kyle. I guess kind of, if Kyle goes out there and beats Jared Cannonier, he's #5 in the division. And the middleweight division is really starting to kind of
heat up. I agree.
Crammed at the very top. So,
yeah, there's nothing but fun fights coming up in the middleweight division. It's like when everybody, it's like you're asking me right now. It's who knows? There's just so many possibilities in that division right now. And I always instead of talking first, I like to see how fights play out and how it all, after everybody fights, let's see what happens and we'll find out what's next.
Is South Africa on the docket? Because
100%.
Thank you.
So he likes to see how all the fights play out, and then we'll decide what's next. This is literally the day after he said Strickland is #1 contender. He already started backtracking a little bit, and then he says South Africa is 100% next. Now, he did backtrack on that a little bit as well. We're going to look at that clip in a second. But the next clip I want to look at is from the UFC Noche post-fight presser. This is where he talks more about South Africa. And there's a whole point I'm getting to, but I want to get through everything first. Listen to this.
Dricus Du Plessis. I'm very serious about Africa in 25. We're going to go there. I'm going to make this happen no matter what. Again, here we go. I don't care what it costs, but whatever it takes to get that done, we're going to go there. And then,
so whatever it takes to get it done, we're going to South Africa. Well, that's awfully funny because Sean Strickland, he doesn't want to go to South Africa. They're racist. And, I'll tag a video down the description where Strickland's been on podcasts crying about how, no, I'm not going to South Africa. They're racist. So if Dana's insistent on going to South Africa, and apparently he's still working on that, we're going to look at the most up-to-date clip here in a second. Well, there's going to be an easy off-ramp for the UFC to say, oh, well, Strickland wasn't too keen on fighting in South Africa, so we decided to give the title fight to Robert Whittaker. We decided to give the fight to Khamzat Chimaev. We decided to give the fight to Nasruddin Imavov or Caio Baralho or Israel Adesanya. Who knows what could happen between now and then? Dricus ain't going to fight injured. Dricus is going to take his sweet time coming back like he always does. And I'm not saying he takes an extreme amount of time off, but I'm just saying he's not going to be forced into a time or date or location that doesn't match with him, okay? We've seen it in the past, turning down title shots because it didn't work out for him. He's turned down massive amount of money to fight at UFC 300 against Adesanya because he wasn't 100% healthy. The most up-to-date clip was 2 days ago, or 2 days from the time of this recording, where he's asked about South Africa, and then he's also asked, is Sean Strickland next? Shout out to Kevin Ioli, always asking the best questions at the presser. This is literally 1 minute and 30 seconds into the presser, essentially. Listen to this.
In South Africa asked me if I would ask you this question. A couple of weeks ago, you had said that Dricus was going to do his next defense in South Africa. Now his coaches are saying he's going to fight in Sydney.
Yeah.
So can you kind of clarify that?
Yeah, so you know how bad I want this. I've been trying to get this thing done. The arena situation there is tough. It's tough to pull off. So that's been the challenge with Africa as a whole. So we're trying to figure it out. The place that we would have to do it at is outdoors. And you know how I feel about that. And so I've been trying to figure out the weather. One of the big things that I'm hearing out there is wind is a big problem. And we've done it a couple times, but anything that can affect the outcome of the fight makes me not even want to try.
Which I love that, because I hate that as well. If you're going to, have humidity or weather or whatever it may be that can affect the fight, I don't want either. But there is a rumor about South Africa that we'll discuss after we finish watching this clip.
So, and it's anything from wind, rain, bugs. I mean, too much humidity. A lot of things can interfere with the fight.
And would Strickland still be the guy?
Oh, here's the best part. Will Strickland still be the guy? I want to rewind this, and I want to kind of, give you a warning. Watch Dana White's body language when he answers this question.
Can interfere with the fight.
And would Strickland still be the guy you had committed to Strickland previously?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that look very reassuring? I mean, that couldn't be any less reassuring if you tried. Is Strickland next?
I mean, too much humidity. A lot of things can interfere with the fight.
And would Strickland still be the guy you had committed to Strickland previously?
Yes.
Just stares at the ground. Yes, that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Which tells me, we're not 100% sure. And I know people could say, oh, well, he said yes. Yeah, let's look at this answer again. Yeah, Dana, can you tell me for sure that Vince McMahon was not shitting on females' heads behind the scenes?
Yes.
Doesn't sound very confidence-inspiring to me. Okay, at the end of the day, he did say yes here, but I'm telling you, how many times has the UFC deviated? You know what this reminds me of? And I wish I had the clip pulled up. But when he was asked about Bilal being the number one contender after UFC 288, that's exactly the same answer he gave. Will Bilal be next? Yes. That's all he did. And what happened? Colby Covington got the next title fight. Okay? And went out there and shit the bed. Now, the next clip I want to take a look at from here. And also, we're working on South Africa. There is articles out there, and I'll link one down in the description. I don't have it pulled up right now, that there's an arena in South Africa that's working on a temporary roof. And the rumor is it's for UFC South Africa. Maybe they're still trying to figure out a time frame on that. Maybe they're trying to figure out still how much this is going to cost. Maybe they're still trying to find out the logistics of it. But if it goes to South Africa and Sean Strickland's even hesitant a little bit, Dana White could easily be like, okay, we're going to move on. You just keep waiting, Strickland. You just keep waiting on the sidelines. Next clip I want to take a look at is Dana White is directly asked about the comments Strickland made, and you can tell he's kind of fed up with Strickland. You can just tell that he's fed up with Strickland. He says, I don't even want to hear about it. Don't even tell me about it.
Last one for me. Sean Strickland had some pretty pointed comments in a
That's crazy.
tweet today.
I can't even imagine.
Kind of slam it. I'm not sure.
To be honest with you, I don't even want to hear it.
Okay.
I don't even want to hear it. It's just, is it even shocking anymore? Whatever he said. Okay.
Does this look like a man who's happy to give Sean Strickland the next title fight? Does this look like a guy who has a publicly traded company who wants to have Sean Strickland potentially as a champion, especially giving him a title fight that he doesn't deserve? I'm telling you, the UFC is going to look for every off-ramp they can possibly get to not give Sean Strickland the next title fight. Whether it's location, whether it's date, whether it's, Dricus saying we'd rather fight, Khamzat, we'd rather fight Whittaker, we'd rather fight Adesanya. Strickland can go back to the Apex. Strickland can even rematch Adesanya. I think that's a fight that a lot of people would have an appetite for. But this does not look like a guy who's ready to double and triple down and say, you know what, Sean Strickland's undeniable the number one contender. Remember he did it with Colby? Even with Colby, when he was pressed about Colby getting an undeserved title shot, he nonstop. He was like, he's the backup. He was the backup. What do you expect? He's getting the next title shot. Again, I'm telling you right now, I really truly believe there's a good chance that Strickland gets skipped over, even though Dana technically confirmed that Strickland's getting the next title fight. And I'll leave you with this. This is what I genuinely think. If it happens in December or January, I think there's a good chance that Strickland potentially gets that title fight. I would say the percentages are up. But any time after that, if it's February, if it's March, if it's April, if it's past February, I really truly believe the UFC will give somebody else the title fight. Whether it's Chimaev, if Chimaev goes out there and beats Robert Whittaker in impressive fashion, you're telling me they're not going to give him a title shot? They've been itching to give him a title shot for years. Okay? If Whittaker goes out there and gets a big win over Khamzat Chimaev and builds a lot of hype, you're telling me they're not going to send him to Sydney, Australia to get another title fight? I think they will. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all plays out. And I really do believe Strickland pushing all these narratives out there that You know, this is UFC is an American company. It's because he's worried. He's desperately looking at what's going on, and he's scared that this title shot's going to slip through his fingers, and he's going to have to fight Imavov, or he's going to have to fight Caio Baralho, or he's going to have to fight someone else to earn that title fight instead of sitting out and bitching and moaning and crying, waiting for a title fight. By the way, there's a rumor. A little birdie told me December UFC 310 co-main event is rumored to be Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje. That's going to be very interesting. We'll see what the main event of 310 is. I find it hard to believe that it's going to be Du Plessis versus Strickland, but we'll see what happens with that big of a co-main event. Who knows what the main event's going to end up being, but I figured I'd throw that into the end of the video for the people who sat around and watched this entire video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Sean Strickland gets the next title fight? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.